In addition to the economic, industrial, and social changes that were taking place in America during the 1920s, an artistic and cultural renaissance occurred. This cultural movement led many to nickname the decade the Jazz Age. This renaissance got its start in African American communities. Perhaps one of the greatest contributions made to American culture during the 20s came in the form of music. African American musicians first developed jazz in the city of New Orleans, Louisiana. Jazz musicians combined the sounds of the Caribbean, West Africa, and the cotton fields of the rural South into a uniquely American musical form. Ideal for dancing, the new sound quickly gained popularity in speakeasies and nightclubs from New York to Chicago. Cornet player and bandleader Louis Armstrong, composer Duke Ellington, and singer Bessie Smith were just some of the many people who helped create and refine jazz. Clarinetist Benny Goodman and other white musicians also performed jazz, which helped popularize it. And as radios became cheaper and more common in American homes, jazz spread even further. The popular composer George Gershwin debuted Rhapsody in Blue in New York in 1924. That composition was heavily influenced by jazz. Jazz was particularly popular with young people who flocked to nightclubs and speakeasies to dance the Charleston. The Charleston also had its origins in African American culture, but whites as well as blacks were drawn to the dance's energetic movements and the upbeat tempos and infectious rhythms of jazz. Jazz also influenced the fashions worn in the 20s. The Charleston's fast movements made the loose, high-cut dresses worn by flappers mandatory. Young women cut their hair short, and men wore baggy pants known as Oxford bags. Jazz culture also made its way into the literature of the day. Author F. Scott Fitzgerald reflected the carefree youth culture and post-war ideals of the jazz generation, a generation committed to having a good time while breaking down the accepted social standards of behavior. While the sexes may have become more equal during the Jazz Age, barriers between the races remained. Many jazz clubs, including the famous Cotton Club in New York City's Harlem neighborhood, let in white customers only. Although it would take decades before African Americans would gain the same rights as whites, the popularity of jazz helped elevate their status in society. But jazz was just one part of a cultural movement taking place in New York during the 1920s. Called the Harlem Renaissance, this movement included literature and politics too. Writer Langston Hughes helped introduce African American culture and concerns to the world. His jazz-inspired poetry was praised for the beauty of his words and for its moving expressions of racial pride. Political leader Marcus Garvey epitomized this racial pride. Born in Jamaica, Garvey was the leader of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Designed to promote the spirit of race pride, the UNIA worked to foster worldwide unity among all blacks. Garvey urged blacks to create an independent economy. He encouraged founding a new nation in Africa that would provide African Americans the liberties they were denied at home. Although many Americans resisted the social changes taking place during the 1920s, the Jazz Age marked the first time that African American music and culture made their way into popular culture. And for the first time in America, the culture of a minority was embraced by the majority. Did you know? The Harlem Renaissance thrived during the 1920s and 30s until the Great Depression forced many artists to abandon New York in search of jobs.